but I completely and utterly disagree, because the conversation takes place on the day. The starting, you can think to yourself, is he talking about 3 days beginning with the day of the equinox? And the answer is no, definitely, positively not. He's talking about a conversation taking place the day prior to the spring equinox. So then the next day, which was the spring equinox day, David doesn't go, but he hides in the field. Let me hide in the field for 3 days until evening. So his first day is the day prior. He's out in the field having this conversation with David, his friend. The next day, Jonathan has to go to the banquet, and then returning back to the conversation in the field the day before the equinox. This is where David says to him, how will I know if I can go back to the big house? And he says, I'll come back on the third day. And we know that that is actually the second, it's dated in the Bible, it's dated in the scriptures, it's the second day of the first month. And Jonathan returns back to the field, he shoots the arrows, and there was a cave in that field, and he would have remained hiding in that cave until what it says, evening. And under cover of darkness, that's where David left to travel a little distance to go to Nob. It's only about 6 miles. And the next day, which will be day 3, is where he's still traveling, and he arrives on day 4.
Yes. Could you read 1 Samuel chapter 20, verse 34 and 35?
Yeah, sure.
Got it.
Right, read it out, Jim.
So, Yahuthenatan, Jonathan, arose from the table in fierce anger and did eat no meat the second day of the month. But it was grieved for David because his father had done him shame. But it came to pass on the morrow that Yahuthenatan, Jonathan, went out into the field at the same time and appointed with David a little lad with him. And he said to his lad, run, find now the arrows which I shoot. And as the lad ran, he shot the arrows behind him. And when the lad was come to the place, like Bob.
Alright, thank you. So, with verse 34 and 35 in mind, how can 35 be the second day of the month when you've got the transition of at the end of the second day, Jonathan ate no bread. The next day, it talks about the fire, and it came to pass in the morning. How can that be day 2?
Because it says it's day 2. Jonathan went out to meet him, as the coded message was that he would fire the arrows. And the coded message was that if the little boy ran after the arrow, that he would say, the arrow is beyond you. In other words, he says, make haste, get going. Get on your bicycle.
Let's go back a little bit. Let's go back to chapter 20. Then said Yehudan, verse 4. 24. David, whatsoever soul desires, I will do you to do. But David said to Jonathan, behold, tomorrow is the new month, there's new moon here, that I should not fail to sit at the king to eat for. Let me go. Let me hide myself in the field the third day at evening. So he's saying he's going to hide himself in the field on the third day. And that's chapter 20, verse 4. So you're on a bit there, but he sat with his father and found out his intentions. But there it is.
Yeah, it's a way of how you look at this thing. You can think that these 3 days begins as the first of those 3, starting on equinox, but it doesn't. It starts the day before equinox. The second of that period is the equinox itself, and the next day, which is the third one of the days, is speaking of day 2 of the month. And of course we know that David left on day 2. He left in the evening because he'd hidden in the cave after Jonathan had come in the morning. He hid in the cave until under cover of darkness when it was evening, because it says it until evening. And he hid until it was the evening when he was under cover of the darkness, because he was afraid for his life. He would have traveled on the third day also. It's not very far. 6 miles isn't that far. And then, of course, he arrives at the sunrise on the 4th day, which is then counting from day 2. That's the first of the second set of 3 days. So there's 2 sets of 3 days, and the second set begins on day 2. He's still traveling on day 3. and he arrives at sunrise on day 4, which is the 7th-day Sabbath, and it's the hot bread. And I've got so much information on that with the hot bread. I've got the James Fawcett and Brown, and it tells you straight that the reason why it's the showbread is because he arrives on the Sabbath day, and that is the 3rd day, counting day 2, day 3, and day 4. There's your 3 days, and it's the second set of the 3 days. So you've got to realize that.
I do agree with you that is the Sabbath, because it is the Levitical law to take out the showbread on the morning of the Sabbath. So I do agree that is the Sabbath day that David showed up, and it's really awesome to know that Nob is only 6 miles away. But thank you for the clarity and all of that. I just wanted to kind of see how you were looking at. Thank you.
I was looking at chapter. I was looking at verse 35 as being the 6th day of the week, verse 35, and then the next day would have been the Sabbath.
Yeah, I agree with you as well. The verse 35 is the beginning of the 6th day when Jonathan went out there.
Yeah, right. That's what I'm saying.
If you go back a bit again, to me, when I first studied this with Libby, it was the first time in my mind, and I think that this scripture exists entirely within the scriptures that we have today that sit before us, the word of truth. Not the falsified word of truth, but the words of truth amongst the hidden, rubbish that the Babylon have thrown at us. I honestly think that this exists, this chapter and these verses within the scriptures to tell us what the true day is. It's like the sign that he sets the sun with his strength in Psalm 19 verse 1, where he goes out like a strong man. Like the sign, the shadow in the air. This is a sign to substantiate the truth of his word.
Yeah.
I don't care what anyone says, it's as clear as day to me. It substantiates the true Shabbat.
Yeah.
And there's no other scripture in the scriptures that actually does this.
I agree.
Those 3 days that certainly when he left the field under cover of evening, when it's darkness coming in so that Saul's men don't spot him and see him, he leaves. He must have gone back to the cave after Jonathan had seen him with the arrows, and he hid in the cave until evening because it says so. And so under cover of evening on day 2, he leaves the field. Day 3, he probably is very careful that Saul's men don't see him, but he's traveling those few miles, and he arrives at the sunrise on the 3rd day, which is literally why Ahimelech says to him, I can give you the old bread as long as you've not been with women these past 3 days, which of course he hadn't. And of course those 3 days going backwards is the Shabbat, the 7th day, the 6th day, and the 5th day. And the 5th day is the day after the equinox. So it's definitely, without a shadow of a doubt, this is correct. This is absolutely bang on right, telling us where the true Shabbat is to be found. It's absolutely amazing.
Yeah, it's literally the
verse 18 helped you a little bit. Yeah, let me read verse 18 in one chapter. Then Yahunathan, or Jonathan, said to David, tomorrow is the new moon. It should say new month, but it says new moon in Dr. Pigeon's cipher. You shall be missed because your seat will be empty. When you have stayed 3 days, then you shall go down quickly and come to the place where we did hide yourself. When the business, which is a very interesting translation, look at the Hebrew, was in hand.
It means the shadow. The
shadow.
Is the shadow.
And shall remain by the stone Ezel. So it's the going stone in the Hebrew, or the stone of the sign, and the shadow marks the stone when the equinox happens.
Yeah.
And I will shoot 3 arrows, and therefore, as thou I shoot a mark, behold, I will send the lad, saying, go and find the arrows. And if I expressly say to the lad, behold, the arrows are on this side of you, take them thence and come thither to the peace. Come in peace, and that you'll know hurt as Yahuwah lives. But if I say to the young man, behold, the arrows are beyond you, go your way, for Yahuwah has sent you away. As touching the matter which you have spoken of, behold, Yahuwah between you and me forever. So we're talking about the 7 oaths, which is a very powerful oath in the Hebrew.
Yeah. Oh, I can tell you now, I can't say to you how delighted I am that I can feel so confident, not in myself, but in Yahuwah's word. Yahuwah's